Okay, so we've got a knee joint of the right leg. We're going to walk through bone structures, then muscles, and then ligaments and tendons. So obviously we start with our femur right here. For the femur, we have a medial epicondyle and a lateral epicondyle. Then we come down here to the tibia. Right there, we have a lateral epicondyle and medial epicondyle. We'll wrap up bones with first the fibula right here, and then the patella, which is hiding right there, and that is a sesamoid bone. Now we can move on to muscles from this anterior aspect. We have the rectus femoris muscle. We have the vastus lateralis, it's on the lateral aspect. Then we have the vastus medialis coming down on that medial side. For our tendons and ligaments, we'll start with this one right here. This is our quadriceps femoris tendon. It's running from our rectus femoris down to the patella, which is hidden behind it. There we go. So this is a tendon right here because it's muscle to bone. Then when we move on further down, we're going bone to bone, so it becomes a ligament, and this is the patellar ligament. We have our LCL, what is that called? Our fibular collateral ligament, or LCL. Then we get our MCL, which is our tibial collateral ligament. Can you tell I'm struggling right now? Okay. Our tibial collateral ligament, also known as the MCL. I think that's it for the anterior aspect. Okay, so now for the posterior aspect of the knee. First, we're just going to orient ourselves using bone structures and muscles. So obviously this is our femur. We can see the femoral condyles, so medial and lateral. So epicondyles on the side, just a condyle when it's back here. You can see that popliteal or popliteal fossa, depending on how you pronounce it, but you can see like how deep that is. Then we have our tibia with its condyles, and then fibula. For muscles, since we have our tibia here, we know this is medial side, so vastus medialis, vastus lateralis. For the other muscles, I'm not sure if you actually need to identify these, but just in case, we've got a gastrocnemius. The most lateral ones are going to be our gastrocs. And just remember that those span the knee joint and go down to the leg. Then we have our plantaris, not exactly sure the pronunciation, but that one's that. And then we have our popliteal or popliteal, depending on how you pronounce it, that spans right here. For the most important information for this, we're going to focus on the menisci and then also the ligaments. So first we've got our medial meniscus, lateral meniscus. This is this oblique structure running from the lateral meniscus to the femur is going to be our posterior meniscofemoral ligament. So you can see it running like that. Just deep to it, we have our posterior cruciate ligament, and deep to that, we have our anterior cruciate ligament. I think that's it for the posterior aspect of the knee. Okay, so since we're already here in the knee, I figured I'd go over all of the knee ligaments and their functions, since he kind of stressed that we needed to know that. So we're going to start on the medial aspect. We're going to start with the medial collateral ligament, more importantly known as the tibial collateral ligament, going from the femur to the tibia. The function of this one is just to stabilize this medial aspect. So we don't want to have lateral flexion. So it's going to stabilize this side, keeping it nice and tight and stabilized to prevent lateral flexion. Then we've got our lateral collateral ligament, more importantly called the fibular collateral ligament. This one's going from femur to fibula. And then this is, again, just going to stabilize, but this time we're stabilizing the lateral side of the joint, preventing medial flexion. Next we have our anterior cruciate ligament, which you can only really see from this posterior view, but it's important to remember that it's running from the anterior tibia to the posterior femur. This is going to be resisting anterior movement of the tibia, so it's preventing the tibia from moving forward like that in relation to the femur. So we want it to be nice and stabilized. It's also preventing medial rotation in relation to the femur, because we don't want tibia to rotate in while this is stabilized facing anteriorly. So that's our anterior cruciate ligament. Then we get our posterior cruciate ligament right here. For the posterior cruciate ligament, it's going from the posterior tibia to the anterior femur. So you can kind of see that it's starting at the back and going front. So posterior to anterior gives us posterior cruciate ligament. This one is going to be, excuse me, stabilizing it is preventing, here we go, it's preventing posterior movement of the tibia. So we don't want this to move back while the femur is stabilized. Then we have, last but not least, our posterior meniscofemoral ligament, and it's running from the lateral meniscus to the medial condyle of the femur. So we can see that movement. And this is stabilizing the lateral meniscus. I think that's it.